Hey, what's up, Closer Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Closer Podcast. Unless it's your first time, welcome, and just welcome, no back. You're probably here because you see the title. If this is your first time, you see the title of the show, you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna learn some sales stuff. And we do talk about sales occasionally, and pretty much sales is everything, right? I mean, there's always some level of selling going on in every conversation, every show, but this show isn't always about sales. But I'm gonna give you, in 30 seconds or less, all the sales training you'll ever need so that we can just move on from that, right? So you don't have to pay anybody for sales training. You don't have to go nowhere. You don't have to read no more books. You don't have to waste no more of your fucking time, all right? 2 things you need to be a salesperson. Number 1, empathy. How do you get empathy? Shut the fuck up and listen. All right, number 2, the second thing you need as a salesperson is confidence. How do you get confidence? You shut the fuck up and you learn about your product that you're selling. Product knowledge. It's that simple. Once you master listening to people so that you have empathy and they know that you know what their problem is and you're confident that the product that you sell can solve their problem, that's all the sales training you ever need. Now, how come you know that and you may not be rich? Or how come now you know that and you didn't get instantly rich? Like, how come now you're not the best top producing salesperson on the planet? It's because you can be the best salesperson on the planet, but if you don't have people to talk to and no one to sell, you'll still have starving family. That's just how it is. No matter if you've got the skills of Jordan Belfort and Grant Cardone combined, if you ain't got nobody to talk to, you're just going to have to sell yourself that you're the world's best salesperson because you're not going to be able to convince anybody else. The missing piece for so many salespeople that don't understand what it is that makes us rich, what makes us wealthy, what makes us millionaires is not our sales talent. It's not reading another fucking sales book. It's not buying another sales program. It's not going to another sales seminar. It's getting good at getting goddamn leads. You need some fucking leads. You need some people to talk to, right? I could be a sales fucking moron with 0 skills, but if I got a bunch of leads, hey, there's a sucker born every second. Eventually, one of those seconds in the days, I'm gonna run across them, right? If I talk to enough people, a shitty pitch with a dumb person is eventually gonna make a fucking sale for me, right? It's gonna happen. The law of numbers supply it that way. But so many salespeople, they focus their entire lives on their identity is that I'm in sales. So I sales books, sales podcasts, sales studies. And the truth is, when you get good at generating leads, that's when your sales numbers pick up. So what you need to stop doing is studying sales. I gave you all the game you need, and you need to start studying how to generate leads so you got people to sell to so that you can make a bunch of money. The first place that you generate leads from to get people to sell to that I would suggest wouldn't be knocking doors, wouldn't be cold calling, it would be social media, right? You go to Facebook or Twitter. Heaven forbid you go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, right? And you post a video, you post a link, something with an offer to whatever it is that you sell. That's a better strategy these days than knocking doors and cold calling. But if you want to collect leads from those posts, you can go to a website called Phone Sites. You go to phonesites.com/closer. That's my affiliate link. I also own the company, but never mind that. Now, Phone Sites will allow anybody, even you, that's right, even you, I know you're thinking, not me, definitely you, to build a website with no training, no tech skills, none of that shit needed. You could be like, I don't even know what a phone is, and you can have a website in 10 minutes. You think, oh, how I even write shit on the website? You don't have to. Phone Sites is so smart that you type shit in the box like you would a Google search. You want to sell, I don't know, beef jerky? You type in the words beef jerky for sale. It's like, we have amazing peppered teriyaki flavored beef jerky that'll knock your socks off for sale today. Come get some now. It's literally that fucking good. One word, one phrase, one word, one sentence will write a whole offer, a whole ass website for you, all in less than 10 minutes. Then guess what? You got a good ass offer created by artificial intelligence, AKA something smarter than you, right? Us dumb salespeople need something smarter than us to write. We got a website that we can post on social media. And guess what? All this shit's free, at least for 2 weeks when you go to phonesites.com/closer and you take me up on the 2-week trial. So stop focusing on getting good at sales and start getting good at people, Start getting good at getting people good to sell to. That's what I recommend. Phonesites.com/closer. I know how to weave a sales pitch into a podcast, my man.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I've had a little practice at this, you know, and you can't just tell people, you can't just come out the gate and go, you need a website. right? Because then they go, well, I don't need a website. I've lived my whole life without one. I don't need one. And then you go, but you can make one. And they go, no, I can't, right? You just say like, this is objection handling in advance, by the way. Really sales, I've thought of this. I've heard them all. And they say, well, I can't. It's like, no, you really can. It's like, no, I really can't.
I don't even have a computer.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, you don't even need one. You have a phone, right? Like I've literally handled every objection for them, right? But I have to go through this whole spiel, right? And it's different every week. You know, last week I was selling beer. This week it's beef jerky. Next week maybe we'll go up to the letter C. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, I'm here today, ladies and gentlemen, a good friend of mine. We've known each other for 8 or 9 years now, huh?
It's about that long, yeah.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of cool stuff together over the years. My friend Adam Lyons, he's joining us from Bastrop, Texas, which my friend Jose used to live there, you know, in the prison.
And he never invited me over for drinks when he was there, nothing.
You didn't miss anything. I'm pretty sure the shit they drink there is made in the toilet anyway.
Yeah. He's got some good stories about the kids from Bastrop would drive by and stick the middle finger up and they'd be like, you know what? Those kids are kind of cool.
He's a character, man. So, but you don't have a Texas accent, man.
I don't know. Well, actually, everyone in Bastrop sounds exactly like me. It's a regional.
That explains. The hill country's weird.
Yeah.
You know, that's just that part of Texas.
Yeah, no, originally in London, and I fell in love with Texas, and I especially fell in love with like the wild parts of Texas. So I live on a 43-acre ranch. I've got 5 kids, chickens, farm, the works.
You know, and just since we're on that topic, the some people like me like to flex with a Lamborghini or whatever. You have like a full-on fucking paintball field or some shit in your house, right? Like y'all buried tires and set up a whole ass like competition park or some shit,
yeah,
right?
it was funny. Someone said to me the other day, they're like, you know, I know you're wealthy, but like, what do you spend your money on? And then I showed them we built like a 2-acre Nerf war arena. Because my kids like Nerf war, yeah. And so I got a whole bunch of tires and we built up all this like massive area. And when it's too hot right now, but when it's not too hot, all the kids, they go outside, they invite their friends over and they have a Nerf war and we make bison burgers for them. And yeah, it's great every Sunday.
That's awesome. You guys, you brought me a watermelon today that you grew on your own farm.
Yep, that's exactly it.
So you guys do a lot of your own food and stuff like that?
Yeah, so about a year before COVID, back 2019, I predicted that COVID would shut down and create a lockdown. And
a lot of people right now are hearing this going, that's bullshit, but you trust me, you should believe him.
Yeah, thanks.
I probably have text from him that could prove that was true.
Yeah, and my background was crisis PR. I used to have to predict problems. So, like, you don't get out of that. You always think about it. So I predicted it was about an 18-month lockdown. And so I figured that in that situation, there would be lines at the grocery store. And I was like, you know what? I don't know whether this is real or not, but what I do know is that if people are sick, you don't want to line up in a grocery store. Right. It doesn't matter what the social distancing is inside the store, outside the store, you're still bumping into people. There's a line. I was like, we should grow our own food. And there was a moment.
More importantly than that, you don't want to be hungry.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, 100%. And so we fed our entire family and all our staff and a few neighbors from the farm. Pretty much exclusively. We had the farm, which had eggs and tons of vegetables. And then we had a couple of deals with some local butchers. So we had meat coming in. And then beyond that, it was just some sauces that we'd buy from like Amazon or what have you when they arrived. But yeah, we fed our whole family for pretty much 9 months without going to a grocery store.
Wow. So now you know you can do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like that's the big thing I would imagine. It's like, okay, we for 9 months, we got the practice. So we know the drill. So there's this book. There's a guy named Michael Roden who's in Apex, and he's in the reserves of one of the military branches. I can't remember if I said which one, it would be the wrong one, and it would be offensive to him, so I'm not going to. But he gave me a book. You should read this. It's called 1 Minute After.
Okay.
And it might be 1 second after. I'm totally butchering this, but it's a fiction novel, and the foreword was written by Newt Gingrich. So that's how, and it's not a political book. It's that, and this is true stuff. So they did a study that if you launch a nuclear weapon like 100 miles above the atmosphere, it doesn't kill us in the sense of how Hiroshima happened, right? Mm-hmm. It knocks out all the electrical grids, right? So immediately your car doesn't work. Yes, EMP, yes. So your car doesn't work. Nothing works, right? So if that happens, like, first of all, if you were in a plane, it immediately drops, right? If you're in a car, the electric brakes no longer work, like total chaos immediately, right? And they don't even have the communications to be able to figure out who the fuck sent it in the first place, right? And this book is basically and I'm really giving you guys some game here. I shouldn't. I'm a nice guy, but this book is really a layman's it's like a how to not be a lame motherfucker if some shit happens, right? That's how I read it, at least. You know what I mean? Because you realize immediately, like you think, hey, we're gonna run down the street and just snatch one of these cows from the thing or whatever. It's like, dude, that was the first thing they thought of, and cops weren't guarding the streets writing tickets anymore. They were standing around all the farms, like controlling the food and shit. So it allows you to be like, we're gonna have to play some chess over here with these motherfuckers. But it's definitely a book you should read, because since you have a farm, there's some precautions you need to take, not to make sure your family's fed, but to make sure nobody else gets in there.
I actually love that you said that. I have heard of the book before, actually. It's been recommended. It was really funny because I had a lot of people talk about, like, are you a prepper? I get that a lot. I'm not a prepper, right? That's not what I am. I'm a businessman. I like buying and growing businesses.
Motherfucker.
Right. But part of being good at running a business is thinking ahead. Like, you handle the objections in advance. Yep. And so when we realized, as part of, like, thinking ahead of what problems are going to be, I thought ahead for food. But it's funny, we covered all those scenarios as well. What happens if someone tries to take it? And I think we've all met that person that lives in the city today, has bought himself a couple of guns, and he's like, if anything happens, I'm going to take my family and we're going to go and, camp out in the wild and hunt deer. I'm like, motherfucker, you're not going to hunt, not on my land. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, you may have a couple of guns, we have a lot, and night vision goggles, and we know the back of our land and where everything is.
And we've been practicing off the back porch. Right. You have to go to a range and pay money and get a permit. We just fucking shoot on a Tuesday at 9 a.m.
Right, yeah. We literally have like 5 acres dedicated to training and practicing. And because we have a Nerf war arena, we've totally done drills around the house. Not to talk about it like that, but it's funny because I do get accused of being a prepper, which I'm not. However, having said that, in the last 3 years, I've lived through 2 scenarios where there was a food shortage, which was which was COVID, and then 2 was the freeze. During the freeze, I housed 4 families and fed them. And we kept them warm, and we gave them everything they needed, and they were completely looked after. And so we've already lived through 2 scenarios where our preparation was actually needed. Out where we are, we're not in the cities, and the cities had it worse. We had 2 families come in from the city because the water was not flowing, and there was contaminants. There was all sorts of issues. They couldn't get fresh water, and we have a private spring. So we had our own water, and we would say to people, come by our house, we'll give you a big bucket of water. You can take it home, you can drink. It's a unique scenario, but what I love about it is it really bonds our family together. We all work around the farm. We all produce the food.
That's how God intended us anyway.
I agree 100%. And it was really cool because, I'm engaged. I get married next year. We've been together 9 years. I figured it was time to get engaged. And I hid the fact I could cook for about 6 years from my fiance. And I'm never going to forget, it was COVID, and she's cooking food and trying to put things together, and she's in tears. I was like, babe, what's wrong? And she says to me, I'm tired of eating my shit food. And she's like, I can't cook, and I feel like I'm failing you, and I just want to eat at a nice restaurant, and they're all closed down, and I'm so sad. And I was like, how about maybe some grilled lobster on some truffle risotto? And she's like, don't do that to me. She goes, I would love like that kind of food. I was like, babe, I can cook. And she said, what do you mean you can cook? I was like, no, I can cook like 5-star cuisine. And she's like, get out of it. And so I go and I cook a lobster, and I grill it, and I butterfly it, and soak all the seasoning into it, and then I make a truffle risotto with like fresh mushrooms from the farm from scratch. And she's eating it. She said, this is some of the best food I've ever eaten. You can cook? Anyway, since that day, I've cooked every night, which is why I was hiding it. We don't go out anymore. She's got me cooking sushi next, and I'm like, oh God, we got to get a rice field now. Like, what's going on? But it's really cool because, we don't go and eat out. We don't get takeaway. Uber Eats won't even deliver to us anywhere where we are. Right. And every night, it really is a family environment. We're sitting around at home. We're eating roast duck with, the vegetables, whatever the daily vegetables are from the farm. It's just such a lovely bonding experience that I think is really important. And like you said, that's how we show our wealth. We show our wealth by actually having free time with our family, by doing things that blow the kids away. Like, I know but like for my son's birthday that came up recently, he likes dinosaurs. And so I rented 2 giant animatronic dinosaurs and the actors to come and visit my kid because he likes dinosaurs. So I had a T-Rex and a Velociraptor come and visit him for his birthday. Yeah, and like 3 baby dinosaurs they could interact with. And they were actors using these puppets. And my kids, they had one as a pet on a chain. I was like, man, this guy's in the Texas heat in summer. I am paying this guy a lot of money to do this. I feel bad. I was like handing him water. I'm never going to forget.
It's like a Jonah Hill character in a movie. Right?
But like my kids loved it. They thought it was the best thing ever. And then at one point, I felt the actor was so hot, they put the baby dinosaur down. So they're like grabbing a water. My kid comes out and he's like, is it dead? He's like, seeing the puppet on the ground. He's like, Dad, it's not moving. I'm really worried about the dinosaur. It's hot out here. And they're trying to feed it popcorn and water. And of course, the puppet isn't eating anything. And my kid's freaking out. And I'm like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's probably just sleeping. He's like, with his eyes open? I'm like, trust me, it'll be okay. But yeah, that's kind of like, how we enjoy life. But my kids are everything, man. And I know one of the things that we're going to talk about is just how motivated I am. And I know you're a big family man with your kids. And for me, I like buying and growing businesses. It's like one of my favorite things. I think I've got 16 at the moment. But in the last, since 2020, I've either for myself or my clients bought, negotiated, scaled, or grown over 1,900 companies.
Wow. So that's where I know, but obviously the audience doesn't. It's like, okay, so you got this nice family and farm and stuff like that. Like what allows you, what line of business? I mean, you're verified on social media. So obviously you've done some big things in the business world that allows you. So what is it that you do that provides that lifestyle for you?
Yeah, I think my superpower is developing upsells. I'm really good at analyzing a company and working out where extra revenue can come from. And that initially it's like, oh, wow, so you just like develop a new product or it's just sales. But it's so much more than that. If you think that, let's just say a company is running at a 15% profit and they only have 1 or 2 upsells. Well, if you can bring in a new upsell every quarter and that upsell increases the profit because there's no acquisition cost behind a lead in that, your profit margin can jump 20%, 30%, 40%. And that's compounding profit, which is actually as good as compounding interest, maybe even better if you think about how it can impact. Because the reality is, once you've made a sale to a customer, and you have one customer, if that customer loves what you do, they're going to come back to you and say, man, what else can you sell me? Because I really like you and the sales process you give. And what other products are you offering? So once I realized that, I was really terrible at ads and I couldn't generate leads, but my clients were so happy with anything we did because we had amazing customer service, we'd developed a system of identifying what else they wanted us to create for them and how it should be sold. And we had all these systems to develop it. Well, this meant that any company I go into, I can help it make a lot more money. And then you get to a point where you think, well, why the hell am I making other people rich when I can just go and buy these companies myself and often make so much money on the upsell that it pays for the company itself? And I've done this so many times. I can literally go into a company. In some situations, I've offered them payment terms, and before the company is paid off, I've made enough extra money to fully pay it off, and I don't even need to come out of my own pocket.
So many people probably listen to that and they're like, yeah, probably once. You know what I mean? But not 1,900 times, right? Mm-hmm. But let me explain something to the audience listening here. So most companies, and when I say most, I don't mean like a handful. I would say randomly rectal extracted statistic 95% or greater, okay, of companies, okay, don't upsell at all. And what an upsell is, it's common between us, but maybe it's your first time here, you don't know what the hell that is. An upsell is if I've sold a customer something, I'm going to sell them an additional service. An upsell, if you buy a car, would be financing. If you buy financing, it might be a warranty, would be the upsell. In the mortgage world, an upsell would be mortgage protection. Insurance is an upsell, right? In insurance, riders are upsells. In the digital marketing world, bolt-on digital products, you might get a free plus shipping book, and then a digital product that you pay $97 for is the upsell. So just to put that in perspective, most companies and most salespeople are so excited to make sale number 1, they never fucking ask for sale number 2. They never even considered that sale number 2 might even be a thing. But let me tell you what, if you don't believe anything that I've ever told you ever before, if you've done your job right on sale number 1, sale number 2 is easier.
I think one of my favorite quotes, this was on Forbes. It was a few years ago, so the data's probably out of date now, but it was something like, of the companies that effectively use upsells, 70% of their revenue is from upsells alone.
I believe that.
Right? It's a massive statistic. Our own data that we've looked at specifically for online companies, it appears that less than 10%, probably 8%, are actively using upsells.
Okay, that's more. That's more than I gave them. But I was one of those people. That's why I tell you this story, because as a salesperson, right, I sell you a mortgage. That's what I used to do. It's like, okay, I got really nothing else to sell you. In a lot of places, that's what it is. If I'm a car salesman, I sell you the car, but I'm not the finance guy. If I'm the finance guy, I maybe got an upsell. But the car salesman, I might sell you the protection package maybe, but that's bullshit. You know, it's like I never really had like an upsell deal. So I'm running these events, Adam, you'll love this. I'm running these events for Break Free Academy, and I'm doing 5 people, and then I got 10 people and 20 people. And one time I go to this event in Houston, Texas, and I watched the guy that had an audience of about 150 people, and I thought, you know, first of all, that was a big audience for me at the time. You know, it's a very small one for us now, but at the time it was very big. And I thought, man, one day I could see myself doing this. And everybody in that room paid $5,000 to be there, which was about online with what I was charging for BFA at the time. And this guy upsold everybody in the room a $30,000 package after they'd already paid $5,000. See, I was thinking that I must have taken their last $5,000. You know what I mean? Like to get here, that was my mindset. They paid $5,000. I better deliver $5,000. What I missed for the first 4 years of my business is that those people were waiting for me to sell them something that I never sold. So I go watch this guy in Houston do this. I come back, throw another event. Maybe I got 50 people there, right? It's not as big a room as him, but I got 50 people there. And I did the same thing he did. I ran through my shit and I said, by the way, you paid $5,000 to be here. My program's usually $35,000. You can join in for $30,000 today only type of shit. And made like an additional $200,000 from the event, you know what I mean? With only 50 people, you know what I mean? And maybe less than that, right? But like damn near all of them converted over to this $30,000 a year deal, you know? And it's like, what the holy shit? 4 fucking years I'm missing out. I've been doing these events. Like, think of this. Let's say there was 20 people in that room at $5,000 a piece. That's $100,000. I used to be happy to make $100,000. 30 of it's going to the hotel, like we discussed earlier today, and all that shit, right? So then I got commissioned to my salespeople or affiliates or whatever cost, right? So let's just say I'm taking $50,000 of that home, and that was the end of it. But now, all of a sudden, I'm offering those same 20 people a $30,000 package, and I have $200,000 in upsells. I tripled my fucking revenue without having to go find a single fucking customer.
Dude, you'll love this. I have a phrase, and I know that this podcast is all about like actual action steps. So I'll tell you my favorite phrase. I tell all my clients this, the ones that like come and learn this system from us. I'm like, just turn around to somebody, any of your clients, at the end of working with them and say, just out of interest, is there anything else that you wish I'd sold you?
Oh, yeah, that's a fucking great question.
Yeah, and they'll be like, oh, you know what? And they will tell you all sorts of things that they wish that you provided.
Or you can say, is there anything else that you wish that you could purchase from me?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Something of that. Yeah, man.
And it's such a good phrase. And we actually have that
That's a great question.
As a standard phrase to anyone who buys anything from our company. The minute the sale is made, just out of interest, is there anything else that you wish we sold?
And guess what? You hear a lot of people say the same shit. Guess what you should probably add to your repertoire?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you keep hearing this, I wish you sold me a warranty. I wish you sold me a warranty. It's like, probably should get in the warranty business, you know?
Yeah, and you'd be shocked.
Or get an affiliate deal.
Yeah. I had a guy who's a friend of mine, and he was a car salesman. And he says to me, there's no way this would work for me. Like, you know, this upsell thing. He goes, I just sell cars. I was like, you ever thought about selling a course on how to rent cars on Turo? Suddenly, he went from selling 1 car per person to like every 5th person would buy 2 or 3 cars from him.
Right, because they know how to use them on Turo.
And they worked it out.
Great.
So he would sell him a course on the side via social media as a friend. There was no competition with the car sales thing. And he's like, yeah, you know what? Some of my clients actually make money off their car on Turo. If you're interested, send me a message on social media. They would add him on social media and boom.
So you got to this because you bought businesses and you have the way that I would put it is, as a business owner, you're head down, focus on the mission, right? And then when somebody else comes in, a consultant, a mentor, somebody that's going to acquire you, they're like, you've been so head down, focused on your thing, you've left holes in these other areas that's leaking money that I can plug up and start collecting that money, right? So tell us a little bit about, maybe give us an example of one of these businesses that you took over, how you did it, how you found them, how you negotiated with them, and then how it paid for itself.
So I got a step-by-step, and it's actually the most personal story. It was my son, my oldest son. I'm a nerd. I love Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, and we play nerdy games. All my kids are nerds. I feel bad for them. I've done it to them, you know. And
I used to make fun of you for that shit when we first met, but now I'm like, I get it. You guys are... You guys have turned it into a whole thing as everybody's about to learn. So
yeah, so we live in Bastrop, in the middle of nowhere, and there was a game store in Bastrop. And one day my son comes home Wednesday night, Dungeons and Dragons night, and I drop my kid off. I'm super excited for him, and he comes home and he's crying. He's like, "Dad." And I was like, "Bud, what's up? Are you okay? You know, what happened?" I'm thinking he got bullied or something. And he's like, "Dad, they're closing the game store." And he's in tears. And I'm like, "Oh, you know, bad luck, bud." You know, like trying to cheer him up. I'm like, if only we didn't have, you know, I don't know, 3 giant game rooms in our house and all the money.
That they have.
Yeah, like we have everything here. And I'm like, invite the kids to our house, you know, it'll be fine. And he's like, he looks at me and he's like, "Dad, fix it." That's
our place.
Yeah. And he's like, "Dad, fix it." I'm like, "What do you mean fix it?" And he just looks at me. He's like, "Fix it." He's like, "Don't you fix businesses?" And it was at this moment as a dad, and I know you know what this is, where you look at your kid and you realize it doesn't matter how hard I work. If my son has asked me to do my job for him, to prove I can do this, what kind of a dad am I? If I can't do this, and I didn't want to buy a Dungeons and Dragons store in the middle of fucking tiny town in Texas. You know, my businesses that I work with are New York, LA, like Florida, they're all over the place. And he was crying and he looked at me and I just go, "Sure." You know, "Sure." And I never forget, I remember my 2-year-old once looked at the moon and said, "Dad, the moon's so beautiful. Will you get it for me?" I was like, "Sure." It's the same thing, right?
Right there forever.
Yeah, it's like whatever you want, right? Because you, as a parent, you have to. So I was like, "I'll do it." And so I go down to the game store the next day. I meet the owner. I'm like, "Yo, I hear your game store's for sale. You know, what's the situation?" And he's like, "I lose money every month." And he's like, "I can't take it much more." And so he gives me this price. And I'll tell you the numbers because it will blow you away. He goes, "I need 25 grand. And for many people listening to this,
you think, what the fuck? You could buy a business for 25 grand, but he needs money.
He needs money.
And it's 25 grand more that he's not bleeding.
And right. And unfortunately, I'm not an idiot when it comes to buying businesses. And I'm like, listen, the valuation of a business is actually calculated on the profit. If you're losing a grand a month, he was losing $1,000 a month.
You are not Facebook, sir.
Right, yeah. The bills basically go like this. He paid 5, received 4. So he lost $1,000 a month. I was like, if I buy the business off you for 25 grand, I'm actually buying a loss every month. Giving you 25 grand to lose 12 grand over a year is not good. Your business is worth 0. And this didn't go down very well, but it was a fact. Right. And, you know, I like dealing in facts because I'm a nerd. I was like, so everything has to be accurate. And I was like, "Look, I won't give you 25 grand. I'll buy everything in the store at cost and I'll take over all your bills." That is the true value of your company.
You took over his inventory at the wholesale that he paid for it.
All the rent, I'll take over the lease today. You can stop bleeding $1,000 a month. I was like, that's the best offer you're going to get. And I'll buy everything in the store. So he says, "Well, let's look at what that would be." So he calculates it and it works out to be 10 grand. Okay. So we already knocked it down 15 grand. Right. By the way, people also hire me to negotiate buying businesses. This is why. Right. So he's like 10 grand. And I'm like, okay.
But that's smart. You're also walking him through the reality of his numbers.
Right, which is key.
You know what I mean? You want 25 grand, you don't even have that in inventory.
Right,
you know?
Yeah. So it's like, it's not happening. But I'll give you 10. I'll take over all the debt. I'll take over the risk. I'll take over everything. And so he's like, "I don't know. I need to think about it." And so I'm like, "Okay, no problem." So this is where the real sales happens, right? Like, you know, it's persistence and overcoming objections. So suddenly, I now personally take my kid to Dungeons and Dragons every week. And so I'm there every Wednesday. And every Wednesday I see the owner. I'm like, "Hey, there's another grand this month?" And he's like, "Yeah, and again." And I'm just like friendly. I'm shooting the shit with him. I buy him a drink every so often. We got chatting. But I'd always rib him. I'd always be like, "Man, that's got to hurt. How's the wife feel about it?" And he'd be like, "Oh, don't. She's so mad at me," you know. And it was probably about 3 months in. And I was like, "You got a buyer yet?" And he goes, "Still no." And I was like, "Do me a favor. Don't go bankrupt. Sell it to me. Don't let it go. Don't out of pride keep it." I was like, because then the town loses a game store. Yeah. I can fix it. I know how to fix it. Just if you sell it, great. It solved my problem. If you don't, let's come up with a deal. So on the 3rd month, his wife's there. And I was like, "Oh, you must be who I heard about. Hey." And
waiting for you.
Yeah, exactly. And then I said to her, I was like, "Are you happy about losing $1,000 a month?" And she went off. Like, and I feel bad for doing it, but she went off in a friendly way. You know, she's like, "I keep telling him it's got to go, it's got to go." And I was like, "Did he tell you I made an offer?" And she goes, "He did. We've spoken about it." And I was like, "Well, the offer's still real. I will buy all the inventory in the store and I'll take over all the costs." About 2 days later, I get a phone call. And he says, "Okay, done. 10K, it's yours." So I was like, "Well, I'll come in and we'll talk about it." And he goes, "10K, right?" I said, "We'll talk about it." So I walk into the store and I said, is there still 10K worth of stock in here? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, it wasn't 10 grand. It was, I'll buy the stock. Right. So we do another stock check. There's 5 grand worth of stock. He's been selling it. Right. So I was like, he's got 5 grand worth of stock. I was like, it's 5K. So I'll buy it for 5 grand. And he goes, okay, fine. Just take over the lease like right now. Like, he doesn't want to handle it anymore.
It's like the 30th. He's like, pay rent tomorrow, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rent was due in 3 days. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, just take it. And I was like, okay, just so you know, I'm going to need 5-month terms on the 5K. And he's like, you have money. I was like, I do. I'm also a very smart businessman. You need this gone. I'm going to have to pick up all the bills. I got to redecorate. I probably got to put more stock in the store. I was like, I'll give you the 5 grand, but I need 5 months. I'll pay you $1,000 a month for 5 months. And he's like, fine, just take it. So he walked me that afternoon to the leasing lady. We signed over. Everything was great. So now I've got in the store. Now this is where the upsell process comes in. So I like this example because this isn't one of the multi-million-dollar deals that I've done. Right. It's easy numbers. Everyone gets it, right? Like 5 grand's 5 grand, but there's a principle. I won't break my process.
And if you were chucking some private equity shit, it flies over most people's head. A local game card shop on a $25,000 deal, it makes sense.
Right, and people get it. So that's why I like this example, right? So at this point, I've gone in the store, and I remember my fiance said to me, she was like, well, we'll just put the money in the store. Don't worry about it. Like, we can lose $1,000 a month. It's irrelevant. I was like, no, there's a process here. My kid told me to fix it. He didn't just say, pay out of pocket.
He didn't say buy the store for me.
Right.
Fix it.
Yeah, he didn't say pay $1,000 a month so that I can play Dungeons & Dragons with my friends, which, I worked out $250 a week. It's fine for my kids to do something every week, but that wasn't the point. The point was fix it. So I go in and we start our upsell process. So the first thing is we look at the most valuable asset in the store, which is, as you spoke about earlier, leads. What we really did was acquire, apparently, 400 leads, which we found out once we got into
an unused list.
Bingo. An unused mailing list of 400 people. Local.
Clients, 400 buyers.
Who all spend money.
Yep.
And the very first thing we did.
On something that is a recurring residual theme because they're always looking for their players.
Right. Which today makes a lot of money for us, which we'll get to in a moment. So I contact them and I message them and I say to them one question. What do you wish we sold in the store that we don't currently have? And we got 400 suggestions of things they wanted in the store. Everybody replied, oh my gosh, I wish you had this. So I then replied to every person and said, would you be willing to pay for it right now? And I'll put it in the store. And every single person bought the thing they said they wanted because they said they wanted it. This was not genius. This was not hard selling, right? And all I did is I bought 2. I bought 1 for them and then I took the profit and I put that on the shelves in the store. Yep. So now I knew that I had things in the store people actually wanted. We'd already sold 1, and sure enough, when people came to collect their item, they saw the other items and were like, oh, I want that. I want to get that. And they started buying it. Well, within the first month, we had already made like 12 grand. And so we had crushed, with 3x their best month ever. And we were profitable right out the gate. We had more than enough money to pay off the whole store, which we did. We gave the guys money up front. We're like, hey, here you go. We made the money. Everything's good. We redecorated. We changed it. And from this point on, we were doing between 10 to 15 grand a month.
Man, that guy's wife's got to be like, listen, you fucking idiot. These guys took it over. They're making money. You didn't know what you're doing. I hate to be that. Fuck, I hate that for that guy, man.
I've got stories off the podcast. Anyway. Yeah. But long story short, actually, one of the things I did offer the guy, this was a key component, because he was hesitant. I said I'll give him a lifetime discount in the store for him and his kids. That was the thing. And we've honored that to this day. It's like coming up to 4 years, and he's still... or 3 years, and he's still got his discount. His kids come in and they still get the discount. That was, I thought, family to family, that's what mattered. The kids get special treatment.
And he's not bleeding anymore.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. So now everything's looking good, and I think this is like one of the key components of the story, because it gets better, because this gave me an extra 7 figures, and so we'll talk about how. So I'm making 15K a month, everything's good, and then we get a warning. Something really big is happening that the rest of the world would find out later. A guy was moving his car company to just down the road from us. And that guy was Elon Musk, and he was moving Tesla into our area. And we were told the size of our town would increase by about 30%. And everyone coming in would have a lot of money because of Tesla. And everyone was cheering. All the local businesses, we're going to make so much money. We're going to be rich. And as I said to you, I can't not see the problem. That's my strength and my weakness. So I'm freaking out. Everyone else is happy except me. I'm stressed. So my fiance notices that while everyone else is happy in this big town meeting, right, I'm not. She's like, you okay? I was like, well, rent's going to go up. This is only a valid business proposition because our rent is $1,400 a month. It's nothing. When the rent goes up, which it will, we're going to lose out. We have to buy a building like now. Now, at this point, we're in the middle of COVID. And there's a whole other story about how we made sales from a physical store when we were supposed to have our doors closed during COVID. But the long and short of it is we did phone sales, actually. So yes, that's how we did that. So I start looking at buildings. Now, the good news is all commercial property was half price during this time. So because the business has been around a while, I used the business, got a commercial property loan for a commercial business and bought a piece of property in the center of town, better location, something like 6 times larger than the one we have. And we managed to pick it up for $560,000, completely funded by the business. So still, I haven't paid a dollar.
Right.
Not a single dollar has come out of my pocket. So now I've got...
Because on a 10-year note with 20-year amortization or a 5-year note with 20-year amortization, like this is $3,000 a month.
Exactly. 3.5, I think, worked out to be.
Building.
Yep, exactly. And upstairs was an apartment with a tenant that paid $1,800 a month. So
there's half of it.
Which was meaning the downstairs was about the same rent we were currently paying. And I was like, we're going to lock in the rental price right now and today. So we moved into this giant building. Now the downstairs, we had a giant area for the kids, holds a lot more children, a lot more games. We had a huge front area. We redecorated. The apartment upstairs was doing great. And now, fast forward to today, the building's worth $970,000. So a couple of years later, and we've appreciated. And of course, the commercial property bounced back. We make anywhere from $28,000 to $40,000 a month. Our bills are approximately the same. We got a really cool staff member. We stole him from a competitive store in Vegas. Not actually a competitor, but somebody who's doing the same thing. He was a good buddy of mine. Whenever I go to Vegas, I spend a lot of money in his shop. And he was just a manager. They wouldn't let him own it. And he wanted to have his own say and run things the way he wanted. I was like, move to Texas. I'll give you enough money to buy a house. And I'll put you in charge of the store. You'll be in charge of everything. And so my good friend came out, and that's what he does. He runs everything. I don't touch it. And my kids have a place to play Dungeons & Dragons every single week. Now, that same message that we sent on day one is the same one we send pretty much monthly. What is coming out that you wish we had in the store? And from a series of upsells, our game store is continually growing and doubling in size.
Yeah, because that's brilliant, because one person could say, oh, I like, pens, for example, and they go in there and somebody else is like, oh, I like paper. And they're like, dude, that is great for my pen. You know what I mean? And but maybe they didn't know about paper, right? And especially in that world, it's like, it's like the tech world. We can't know about everything. We really have to rely on communities to be like, oh, I tried this, don't buy this. Or I tried this and I love it, no matter what it is. And especially in the gaming thing, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there's always a new game coming out.
Correct.
There's always a new way to play things or a new something to introduce into these things. That's how their upsells work.
Right. Well, and the hardest part is there's probably about 50 game companies, and they all bring out new games. Right. So there's like 30 new games a month.
Upsells.
Right.
Cross-sales.
Right. And so the question is, do we go out of pocket and buy all 30? And the answer is we don't. We just ask the audience every single time, or our customer list, which is now significantly larger, what do you wish we sold? And that's what we bring into the store. Because of that, our stock is changing constantly. Weirdly, we actually stock more paints and paintbrushes than anything else, because our store, some of the customers wanted to have a painting competition, and they started painting the figurines. Mm-hmm. This ended up going on social media, which I know you're a fan of, and people would share the art and ask people online to vote in our little store who's the best artist.
Right.
This has ended up with people coming in and wanting to buy better brushes, better paints. So we now have a better stock of paint than almost anything inside Austin outside of a dedicated art supply store for the University of Texas.
That's interesting, because I'm an investor in a company that they're cards and coffee. Mm-hmm. And 24 hours a day, there's somebody on our YouTube channel just opening packs of cards and showing people what's in there. Pokemon, sports cards, so the power of social media in the gaming world and stuff. I mean, they're not even gaming here. They're just showing you what came in the pack and then selling it. It's like, it's the craziest shit. They do it 24 hours a day. The whole world watches.
Yeah, it's funny. I know cards. Obviously, the project you're in. I know it really well because obviously we have the same kind of cards that we sell in the store. One of the guys in our store pulled a $5,000 card out of a $4 pack, and it was like the whole store went wild. But social media has been really big for us. And shockingly, we've done really well with localized ads. So we started running, again, just
makes sense for that.
Right. For this industry, it made so much sense. And I think we tested 24 different ads. and one ad beat all of them. And the ad was simply, "Did you know we exist?"
Yeah.
And it's just one little ad that says, just in case you don't know we exist, we're a game store, we're in town. If you want to have family nights with your kids, if you want to drop your kids off to play some games and get some alone time, because we're right next to the bar district. And we stay open till 11 o'clock on a Friday night. The parents can drop their kids off, they can play games.
That's brilliant too. And kids always asking for money.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Mom, you know you can't drop me off without no money. I'm going to need these $20. You know, Mr. Adam going to have his hand out when I get there.
Right, yeah. And that's what it is. So the kids will come in and they'll play games until 11 o'clock at night on a Friday, and their parents will go drinking down the street and, you know.
Yeah, shit, $20 in your store is cheaper than a babysitter anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. And the kids, they get on really, really well. So, and then again, speaking about more upsells, so we started thinking, what else have we got? So a lot of the parents, they were like, man, I wish you were open during the day. We had no reason to stay open during the day because the kids are at school. Right. So, but the parents said, but during summer, we wish we could drop our kids off with you. So we could just open the store, right? But you know what's better than that? Is what we're developing right now, which is a summer camp.
Yeah.
You can drop your kids off at gaming summer camp.
Yeah.
So for $100 a day, we can take 26 kids in the gaming area. We can seal it off. No adult can get there because the store's used to being closed anyway. It's not like the adults know.
Right.
So for $100 per kid per day, 26 kids, they sit in the gaming store.
$1 million a year.
Right. And they get to sit and play games all day during summer and winter. And there's somebody on site. We give them like a lunchable lunch. Yeah. And the kids get to play games the whole day. Their parents don't need a babysitter. So
and again, that's $1 million a year, 2,600 a day, by the way. I just want to point out to everybody listening, watching, however the fuck you consume this. He laid out a not like a plan, but like he laid out something that he actually did. He showed you how he went from a $5,000 paid out 1 month at a time. So he went from $1,000 down, okay, right, to $50,000 a month. And if he keeps the current level plus adds this $2,600 per day, then you're really running somewhere around $120,000, $130,000 per month on that, plus $500,000 or so equity in a building, all from something that he was passionate about and knew how to upsell. So I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of people that come on the show. My man Alvin was on here last week, and he laid out some you know Alvin Johnson?
I know the name. I've met him. Yeah.
He laid out some shit that I was like, damn, everybody's doing that. He's like, not everybody, but some of us. You know, I'm like, man, that's like really brilliant. It's the same thing. You gave them the plan. So you literally laid out the American dream. You know what I mean? Something that you're passionate about, that supports your family, that you could get into for cheap. And how to be persistent. You didn't say I walked in and offered him $1,000 and he's like, fuck, here, take it. You know, you're like, hey, 3 months of going there, still showing support, but twisting the knife a little bit and then agitating his wife a little bit. And like, you went through the things that you had to, but, and some people listening might be like, man, he really ran that dude out of a business, but really that dude was shorting the whole community because he existed and he was running a business that wasn't doing the things that it had the potential to do. You keeping maybe kids off drugs. You keeping kids off the fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? If they're in your store, they're not at the crack house at least. You know what I mean?
I love that you said that because this is one of the things I was wrestling with my conscience at the time because I'm normally doing 7-figure deals. This was such a small deal. And I remember thinking, man, I could just go in and tell him what to do. But the reality is he would have needed to have the guts to have those conversations. He would have needed to do the work. And I don't know if he would have. But if I gave him the idea, I may have had him go, well, you're about to make $1 million off this. You should pay me more. And the whole thing could have got that much worse. It could have become toxic. I'm still friends. In fact, I'm not just friends with him. We employed him for one of our other companies. So he's become, as I said, there's stories. He's now an employee of one of our other companies. He's looked after. He's still got the discounts for all of his family and everything. But it is difficult. You can't hand somebody something. And, he had 5 years of running it himself. If he was going to fix it, he could have. Yep. And I think the phrase that I used, actually, I didn't mention, which is probably the best one, is I said to him, every month you lose $1,000. There's a point where after 25 months, you should have just given it to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, so there's only a amount of time that this makes sense to wait. How much longer, how much more stress do you want? And he's so much happier now. He's actually a happy guy. And I'm glad to say, we are friends, because it was all tongue in cheek,
You said this in the office earlier. You said 500,000 businesses a year close down, right? Isn't that the number you said earlier when we were speaking?
Over, unfortunately, but yeah.
And so think about that. That's 500,000 people every. Now some of those are shell companies and shit like that, right? But let's say that 20% of them are real, right? They're not, because a guy like me might own 60 different LLCs and I might shut down a few in a year, you know what I mean? Because I don't need them anymore. Maybe we did a property deal together, whatever the case may be. So let's say that 20% of those, that's 100,000 businesses per year that are shut down. Those are 100, out of that 100,000, we can assume another 20%, 20,000 are probably just mismanaged like this one and could be a huge win that you could get your hands on relatively cheap. Because I've heard a lot of people think this kind of shit's unicorn one off, but I've heard stories like yours from a lot of my clients over the years, where, hey, I took over this. Like I've got a client that started a roofing company. I've got 2 clients that started roofing companies less than 10 years ago that are doing 9 figures a year and had no idea, still maybe even today, not sure how the hell to put a roof on. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm being funny on the last part, sort of, because I mean, that's like the thing. Both of these guys were gym dudes in a big gym chain. And then they went and started 2 completely separate things and just like...
Well, I can't work the till in my game store. Yep. I've got the keys, obviously. I let myself in when my kids want to buy something. We don't wait for it to open. We just go in. And I take photos of everything I take and walk out the store with it and send it to the manager. And he's always like, you could input this yourself in the till. I was like, I have no idea how it works. I don't want to know how it works. I've never used the till. I've never exchanged actual money with any customers in there. Everyone in there knows I own it because I go in there with my kids all the time. But I don't act like I own it. I don't do anything. I don't need to, because I've got a simple system that's organized that handles the whole thing. And that's how, when I do the bigger deals, it's the only way to do it. Like I said, this is a very small deal comparatively. Some of the larger companies that I've done that are in the millions, where I'm receiving an amount of money every single month, it's only because I've helped them make that much more that they want to do it. Because ultimately, that's what it all comes down to. Everyone talks about how much money you make, but it's really how much profit do you make, right? How much is going into your pocket? Or the way I like to look at it is, how big is your war chest? Because in times of war, obviously I'm a nerd, that's how I think, but in times of war, the amount of money you have in the bank is how much soldiers you can pay for. Yeah. Nowadays, how much profit you make is how much you can spend for marketing, promotions, ads. It's how you compete. And ultimately,
that's how you grow.
Right. And ultimately, it's going to come down to, do you have enough profit to compete against your competitors? Like, can you actually do that? And with so many companies not knowing how they're organized or not having upsell processes, it makes a big difference. If you're making on average $2,000 per customer, and then your competitor is making on average $70,000 per customer or more, they need nowhere near as many customers as you to crush you. And that's how some of these companies they seem unstoppable.
You didn't need a bigger town.
Right, yeah. Did not need a bigger town.
You just needed better systems.
Mm-hmm. And by encouraging the bigger space meant the kids wanted to hang out more often. They didn't feel cramped. Right. And the longer they spend in the store, the more money they spend in the store.
So Adam, somebody wants to maybe know more about this, or maybe what businesses you got for sale, or how you can get involved in that. How do they find you?
So the first thing is, you can find me on almost any social media outlet at the Adam Lyons. So it's Lyons. But what I've done, and actually I haven't even told you this, I put my entire system up online for free on a blog post. And you can go to That's
some shit I would do.
Yeah, thesmartblueprints.com. It's about the size of a book, the blog post. It's got content. It breaks down everything step by step. We talk about everything from validating an idea, working out the offer. I even show people how to test it for no money in an audience you don't even own. So I have a whole system on how to do that. Sales scripts, the works. It's free. Just go to thesmartblueprint.com. The reason it's free is because, from my perspective,
thesmartblueprint.com.
Yep. And the reason I make it free is because I don't think there's anything in there that somebody else couldn't work out. I just compiled it all. And these are things that we know from 1,900 plus companies have just worked every single time. And the only reason I would need money is if somebody said to me, hey, can you work through it with me? And then the way I look at it is, you're taking time away from my kids. Making the blog post easy. You read the blog post, just by all means have it. Right. But if you want me to take time away from my kids, that's what I charge for.
Gotcha. So the Adam Lyons.
Yep, the Adam Lyons on any social media.
Cool. Man, I appreciate that. Man, what a cool story. I appreciate you coming and spending some time on here, and you always have cool stories, but I mean, I'm gonna want you to come back and tell us when you exit this business, what you exited it for.
It's funny. I would love to tell you, but I have a funny feeling I'm not going to be able to, because my oldest son said to me, when I get older, I want to run the game store. And it's really crazy because obviously you try and give them the entrepreneurial spirit. And I think there's a lot of people that want their kids to take over their business. But because I know so much about the statistics of the likelihood of a kid succeeding at running a business is very low. It's 2%. So I don't really want my kids to take over my business. I'd rather sell it. But my oldest is like he's like, Dad, you saved it for me and I want to have it. Right. So so I may not exit it. But having said that, what we are already doing is, you mentioned it earlier, the equity in the property. We've already reinvested that equity in other properties. Right. So it's buying us.
And Elon's not even there yet.
Yeah. And it is buying us house after house after house, which we're looking at other projects that we can develop into. So, I mean, that $5,000 that I didn't spend from one upsell has already made me over 7 figures, and the money just keeps compounding profit.
That's so awesome.
Thanks.
So awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Appreciate you, brother.
Sharing your stories. And again, just slide in his DMs if you need anything from him. And say the website one more time.
thesmartsblueprints.com.
Cool. Awesome.
Appreciate you,
big dog.
Thank you, man.
Hey, that's it for this episode. You know, if you got something from this episode, I need you to leave me a review. I think it's a 5-star episode, but, you know, I'll leave that up to you. But, you know, you do have to sign your name next to when you put less than 5 stars, so we know who the fuck you are. You know what I'm saying? So leave us a review and catch us on the next episode next week. Rise above.